And we are back. Welcome to my Premier League mid-season review. It's that time of year again where we have a look at all the predictions that I made at the start of the season, and we'll see basically how I'm getting on in terms of my table. Now, obviously, if you watch all of my predictions week in, week out, you'll know that it has been an incredibly tough Premier League season to score so far. And that is the beauty of the Premier League. It is so narrow up and down the table that it is just so hard to call. But before we get into it, as always, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video and subscribing to the channel if you're new around here, because of course Premier League predictions will continue on this channel going forward. Now, for those of you who don't know how this works, this is all done on a point scoring system. The idea is to get a low as score as possible. You will see here all of my scores from the last 3 seasons. It's all based on where you predicted versus where they currently are, or obviously at the end of the season where they finished. So if you have a team predicted exactly where you are, that is 0 points. If they're 2 points difference, it's 2 points or 2 places difference, etc, etc. And the idea is to get the lowest score possible. Last season was my best ever season, getting only 46 points. We actually did really well. But let's get into it. Let's see how I am getting on at the midway point of the Premier League season. There is the empty table. And the final thing to note before we get into this is that I'm doing this off of where everyone was after 19 matches. Obviously, the Liverpool versus Everton game, or the Everton-Liverpool game, was called off. So they do still have a game in hand on everyone. But now everyone has played 19 matches. Okay, 18 of them have played 20. I am taking where the teams were after their 19th match. And thankfully, game week 20 hasn't affected where Liverpool and Everton are, respectively, in the Premier League table. They are still in the exact same position they would be if everyone was equal after 19 matches. So that is how we're doing it. So if some teams aren't quite in the position that they're in now, that's because I'm taking it from a week ago, whereas Liverpool and Everton I am taking from today. Everyone happy? Good. Let's get into it. In 20th place are Southampton, who I predicted to finish in 20th place. So straight away, that is 0 points, the absolute perfect prediction to kick things off. I said it, they are a championship team. You look at the quality that they've got, you even look at the players that they brought in the summer. They're just a championship team. They've sacked Russell Martin, they've brought in Juric. They had a couple of decent performances since he come in, but then they've got hammered again at the weekend, and it's just, they're going down. The question for them is, can they survive the record lowest points total? Unfortunately, it's just not going to work out for them in the Premier League this season, and they'll be heading back down to the Championship. But hopefully for me, it'll remain in 20th place, so it is a 0 point come at the end of the season. In 19th, we have Leicester City, who I predicted to finish 18th. Again, another side that I've done well with. Trust me, it gets a lot worse as we move up the table, but the relegation zone, certainly we're doing pretty well. Leicester, another team to sack their manager. Steve Cooper is gone. Ruud van Nistelrooy has come in. And sadly, as a Manchester United fan, for Ruud, nothing's really changed. They're still far too open at the back. They're not clinical enough in front of goal. And they're getting beat on the regular. And anything, as painful as it is to say, I think they've actually got worse since Van Nistelrooy took over. Steve Cooper was doing the best job that he could. They've got rid of him. Van Nistelrooy's come in. They've not improved. It's a massive January for them. Is it going to be enough to keep them up? They survived the point deduction, which I thought might come their way, which was one of the reasons I did put them 18th. But at the moment, it's not looking good for them. In 18th place is Ipswich Town, who I put 19th. This is what I said. The relegation zone, I've actually got, in theory, spot on. I said all 3 promoted sides would get relegated. As things stand, all 3 promoted sides will get relegated. 18th place for Ipswich, the only promoted side not to change their manager. They are sticking with Kieran McKenna. I think they may have some good transfer funds available to them as well in January, so they could potentially strengthen enough to keep themselves in the division, but I just look at the teams above them, and I struggle to find which team's going to drop out for them to stay up. So we'll see. They're doing okay. Like I said, I did them 19th, so they're still doing a little bit better than I expected. But ultimately, I just don't think, again, Ipswich quite have the quality, even if they do have the right manager, to keep them in the Premier League. In 17th place, we find Wolves, who I predicted 14th. I thought under Gary O'Neill they would strengthen and maybe start to push on this season, but it's really just not worked out for them this season. Yes, they let another one of their superstar players go in Pedro Neto, and it's always hard for a side to keep moving forward when every single time you produce a really good player, you have to let them go. Diogo Jota goes, then Ruben Neves goes, now Pedro Neto goes, and they're already talking about Matheus Cunha potentially either leaving this month or certainly in the summer, new contract or not. It's just going to be to get more money in for him. The likelihood is he is still going to leave. Gary O'Neill, another manager to lose his job. Vitor Pereira's come in. He's made a decent start, but they were well beaten by Nottingham Forest this week. Okay, that doesn't count in the context of this video because that was in game week 20. But still, it's going to be a tough struggle for Wolves, but I still think they've got enough ability in that squad and a manager capable of keeping them ahead of those sides currently occupying the relegation zone. But we'll see. There is still a long way to go. In 16th place, there is Everton, who I predicted to finish 15th. And as I talk right now, there is considerations that Sean Dyche may not be the Everton manager come the next Premier League fixture. But I think that would be a massive mistake. Okay, they're not scoring goals. It is what it is. They also have one of the best defensive records in the Premier League. And that can't be overshadowed. Jordan Pickford is having a phenomenal season. Some of their defenders are having brilliant seasons. They've just got to get it going in front of goal. And the big concern for me as an onlooker, I don't care what happens to Everton, to be quite honest with you, but if they change the manager and try and be more offensive, they can't get the ball in the net anyway. So if you sacrifice how well they're doing defensively to try and score some more goals, those 0-0 draws might start turning into 1-0 defeats, or they might score some goals and they become 2-1 defeats. For me, I think it would be a humongous mistake for Everton to sack Sean Dyche. Obviously, they are worried that without wins, they're going to get caught by the teams below them with the new stadium being ready for them next season. But I honestly think if they stick with Sean Dyche, okay, they're probably not going to start moving up the table. But I certainly think they have enough ability at the back with him in charge to survive another season. And then maybe you look at changing Sean Dyche in the summer. I think it would be a mistake to get rid of him now. In 15th is Crystal Palace, who I had 11th. And on current form, I still think my prediction of 11th isn't looking too bad. The likes of Eza, Gahey, Mateta, they're still at the football club. Yes, there's still some rumours about Gahey potentially leaving this window, but I don't see that happening. I think as long as they hold on to them, as long as they keep them fit, the likes of Munoz as well, get Adam Wharton back into the side. Certainly over the last few weeks, Crystal Palace have looked a much better side than they did in the opening few weeks of the season. And it's those opening few weeks that see them in 15th place. So even though it's 4 points for me at the moment, I think come the end of the season, I would be surprised if Crystal Palace aren't closer to that initial 11th place. I think they've got the right man in charge. I think they're starting to get things going. But as always, with the Premier League, it is so hard to tell. In 14th place, after 19 game weeks, at the halfway mark of the Premier League season, was Manchester United, which is my worst prediction of the table so far this season. And it is my club, and I genuinely did believe we could get top four. I wouldn't have put us in the top four if I didn't genuinely believe that we could get top four. Off the back of the FA Cup win, off the back of the end of last season, with the signings that we made, I was really confident we could push on under Erik ten Hag. And let's not get it twisted. If you look at those signings, Ugarte, Mazraoui, De Ligt have been three of our best 5 players so far this season. There's no denying that. Okay, Xerxes not really worked out. But the other signings that have come in have done a really good job for us. But the rest of the team just hasn't performed. We have been so inconsistent. Even once Ten Hag has gone, Amorim's come in, the consistency's still not there. Okay, again, I can cheat in terms of this video and say, look at the 2-2 draw against Liverpool, but even though that was in game week 20. But into the end of game week 19, we'd lost 4 games in a row, and we'd lost them quite comfortably without putting in any sort of real performance together. And even off the back of the Liverpool result, moving us up to 13th, where we actually are now, do I have any confidence we're going to finish any higher than where we did last season? If that, probably not. I would certainly say top 4 is far too far away, especially with how many teams we'd have to overtake. We might close the gap on the team currently in 4th, but if we close that gap, there's a good 5 or 6 teams in between us and them that will also close that gap to get there before us. So I think top 4 is an absolute kid's dream. I think if Manchester United want Champions League football this next season, it's going to have to come from the Europa League. Hopefully, Amrin can get it sorted. There's all sorts going on in the transfer window as well, surrounding Rashford and potentially even Mainu and a couple of others. But we'll see. It's a disastrous prediction for me to put them fourth. But we need to move on to 13th, where we find West Ham United, who I did to put 9th. That didn't sound right, but I put them 9th. And I put them 9th with a warning, which was that I didn't particularly rate Julian Lopetegui as a manager. I think he struggled at Wolves when he was there before. I think the signings West Ham made were really good, but I said they potentially made too many signings and it'd be tough for them to gel and get things going as a team. And as we sit here now with West Ham 13th at the halfway stage, 14th at the time of me recording this video, it looks like those warnings have come true. And look, I'm recording this on Wednesday evening. This video is not going out till Sunday morning. By that time, Julian Lopetegui might not be the West Ham manager. It looks like he's going to get sacked and Graham Potter will come in. Will that turn their fortunes around? Honestly, I'm not sure. They've got a very talented squad, as I mentioned in the summer. But it's not worked out for them. Jarrod Bowen's now injured as well. So I think it's going to be a real struggle for West Ham to finish top half. I don't think they're in danger of being dragged into a relegation fight, but they need to do some serious work if they're going to get themselves back up the table. In 12th place, we have Brentford, who I predicted to finish 17th, and that was with the loss of Ivan Toney and a lot of chat that teams were looking at Mbeumo as well. Thankfully for Brentford, Mbeumo not only has stayed, but has arguably been in the Premier League team of the season so far. He has been absolutely outstanding. I'm not even going to say he's carried the team either, because Visser's stepped up. Damsgaard looks like the player that we saw at the Euros a few years back. Despite all their injuries, their defence is playing well, and their other midfielders are doing well. It's been a fantastic season for Brentford. Thomas Frank deserves an awful lot of credit, because me included didn't give them a lot of chance without Ivan Toney up front. They have the best home record in the Premier League so far this season, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. 12th place is well deserved for them, and I deserve the 5 points I've been given by predicting them to finish 17th. In 11th place, we had Tottenham, and this one I am quite happy with, because I got absolutely ridiculed for putting Tottenham in 8th. I got ridiculed. So many people across the world, the internet, and all their predictions were Tottenham, second season under Ange, they're guaranteed to finish in the top 4. And I said, I don't think so. I don't rate Ange. I don't rate the players that they've got. I think they're going to struggle, and I think 8th place is about right. Turns out it's more than about right, because they're currently 11th. They have been awful, Tottenham. Yes, they do have a lot of defensive injuries, which is probably why they're in 11th and not around the 7th, 8th, 9th place that I initially predicted them to be. But I just don't think they have the right ideas. I don't think Ange's tactics work for the players that they've got. Certainly not with the players that they've got fit, but he's too stubborn a manager to change. And I think unless they sort it out quickly, either he's going to be gone or Tottenham are going to be finishing absolutely nowhere this season. Thankfully, like I say, for my predictions, it's only a 3-point hit for me, and I'm quite happy because of how much stick I got for putting them so low down. In 10th, we have Brighton, who I did 13th. At the moment, my 13th prediction actually isn't looking too bad. They're winless in their last 8. Since Welbeck got injured, they have done absolutely nothing. I think Fabian Hürzeler has done a fantastic job in charge of Brighton to get them to where they were before this win-less run. But I do still think that they're not quite at the level they should be. It's still a bit of a mishmash of a team. There's a lot of young talent in there. I think, again, we're going to see some people moving on in the summer. Not necessarily in this window. I think they could potentially bring in a couple more players in this window. I don't think some of the signings they've made this summer have worked out. Ruter has looked like a massive money drain. Kadioglu came in and has basically been injured the entire time. So it's not quite worked out for Brighton. They're still in 10th. It's still better than where I predicted them. But again, unless their fortunes can turn around in the next few weeks, I quite like them finishing 13th where I initially predicted them. In 9th, we have Aston Villa, which is a surprise. I did do them to finish 5th. I didn't think they'd go back-to-back Champions League, but if I'm honest, I've been disappointed with them in the Premier League. I think they've been fantastic in the Champions League. Don't get me wrong, they've been absolutely outstanding in the Champions League so far this season, but It has been a little underwhelming from Aston Villa in the Premier League, certainly defensively, which is bizarre when you think how good they've been defensively in the Champions League against the likes of Bayern Munich, at Juventus getting clean sheets against them, but then struggling at home in the Premier League to sides below them in the Premier League. Very, very bizarre. Ollie Watkins has just not been at the same level that we've seen from him last season. Morgan Rogers looks like a fantastic player. John Duran looks like a fantastic player. But at the halfway mark, they're only in 9th place. So they've got ambitions of European football next season. Again, they're going to have to step it up because there's a lot of sides above them that are playing some very good football at the moment. In 8th place, we find Fulham. Not too much to say about them. I predicted them 10th. Do I think they're overachieving? No. I think they've got a very solid squad. I think they've got a very good manager. They managed to keep the majority of their players fit, even the ones that get injured. They have players of the exact same ability to come in and replace them. And that's what I like about the Fulham squad. You look at their team, there is no real weakness in their team. And they have near enough 2 players for each position. You just don't really recognise it on the same sort of scale as you would, say, a Manchester City, because Manchester City, in theory, have world-class players in every position twice. Whereas I think Fulham have a Premier League player in each position twice. And it really goes under the radar what a good squad that they've got. And I've been really impressed with them. Do I think the likes, again, of Villa, Tottenham, Man United, maybe even a Brentford could overtake them before the end of the season? Possibly, but they're well worth that 8th place at the moment. They're going to be eyeing those European places, and fair play to them if they get there, because it's been a fantastic season for Fulham so far. In 7th place, we have Bournemouth, who I did 16th. And at some point, I've got to look at myself and say, maybe Bournemouth are a little bit better than I give them credit for. 2 seasons in a row, I've done them to get relegated, and they finished mid-table. This season, I finally decided not to put them in the relegation zone, but still didn't give them much chance, and they're 7th. And I have to say fair play to both Iraola and some of the players in that squad, which I really didn't think had the ability that they really do. Mainstay for me, Justin Cliver. I did not rate him at all. He has come into that Bournemouth side and has been absolutely fantastic for them. He has really stepped up. Everyone was on about Solanke moving on and is Evan Nilsson going to deliver? I think Evan Nilsson has delivered firstly, although I think apparently he's picked up quite a bad injury. Could be out for a little while. But for me, it's Justin Cliver that stepped up and the new boy Housen at the back and Kepa in goal. And I think Kirkez has stepped up a level as well. I just think everything about the Bournemouth side is good to watch. They play good football. They're hard to break down. And again, they're well deserving of their top half place at the moment. They're going to be eyeing European places, as they should, because it's a good season for them. But again, there's some big teams behind them. They're going to have to keep up their standards. Otherwise, we could see them slightly drop down the table. However, I don't think it'll be as far down as the 16th place I initially put for them. In 6th place, we have Manchester City, which is unbelievable, to tell you the truth. I am absolutely stunned at how bad Manchester City have been this season, but I've said on multiple occasions that if you took Rodri out of that Manchester City side, they would struggle. I didn't think they'd struggle this much, but I did think they would struggle. And let's not forget, it's not just been Rodri. De Bruyne's missed big parts of the season. Foden has missed almost the whole season as well due to some really bad illness. And Ruben Diaz has not played as much as you would expect. And they've even had troubles between Edison and Ortega in goal. So it's really not been happening for Pep and Manchester City this season. What I would say is at the halfway mark of the Premier League season, Manchester City are 15 points behind Liverpool. Could I see Manchester City winning every game between now and the end of the season? Yes. Could I see Liverpool dropping 15 points before the end of the season? I would say between 10 and 20, but 15 might be a bit of a push. So are Manchester City out of the title race? In my head, at the moment, yes. But anything can happen between now and the end of the season. What I'll say now before we even get to them is Liverpool have only dropped 11 points at the halfway mark. So they would have to drop more than that for City to catch them. But you just don't know. Manchester City have 18 games left in the Premier League this season. The longest winning run in the Premier League era is Manchester City with 18 wins. So it could happen. I'd be very surprised if it did. In 5th place, we have Newcastle United, who I did to finish 6th. And to be honest, right now, Newcastle are looking very good for a Champions League place. They're playing arguably the best attacking football in the Premier League at the moment, but they're matching it with good defensive displays as well. They look fantastic. They've won something like 5 or 6 in a row in all competitions, if you want to include the victory over Arsenal in the League Cup last night. Do I think they will get a Champions League place? Again, I'm not sure, especially given the fact that a team like Manchester City are still behind them and could get in there themselves. And there's another club that's currently in the Champions League places that we'll get to in a moment, which could more than likely drop out. But they're in with a chance. They've got no European football to play themselves. Yes, they've got a semi-final to worry about, and they're going to start their FA Cup campaign, or would have started their FA Cup campaign by the time you are watching this video. But right now, I think there's definitely a high chance Newcastle could get those Champions League places, especially if the boundary does drop to 5th, which is rumoured that it could do. In 4th, we have Chelsea, who I did to finish 7th, and again, off the back of the last few weeks, my 7th place prediction isn't looking too bad. I think Chelsea probably did overachieve a little in the first half of this season. I think the run that they went on when they won something like 8 or 9 games in a row was against lesser opposition, with the greatest of respects to the teams that they beat. They're coming up against tougher sides now and are struggling and are losing. Are they still a little bit over-reliant on Cole Palmer? Possibly, yes. They've got injuries at the back, but bizarre stat I saw earlier on this week. Everyone keeps moaning about Chelsea's goalkeeping. Robert Sanchez has the highest save percentage in the Premier League so far this season. So for those of you that have a go at the Chelsea goalkeeper, just bear that in mind. Are they going to get top 4? I still don't think so. Will they finish as low as 7th? I'm probably not so sure of that anymore. I think a 5th or 6th for Chelsea sounds about right in my eyes. In 3rd place, we have Nottingham Forest, who are now obviously joint 2nd with Arsenal. It's only goal difference that is keeping them in 3rd at the end of game week 20, at the end of game week 19. They were a couple of points behind them. I'm a little bit disappointed, because obviously I have to take a 9-point hit for this. But at the same time, I'm very happy with my prediction. Because again, there were people that were predicting Nottingham Forest to get relegated. And I looked at Forest at the start of this season. I went, that squad is too good to be in a relegation fight. I think they're going to do well this season. I think they're going to finish mid-table. And I think 12th sounds about right. For them to be in the Champions League places, going to the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United and a few others and getting wins. They're on something like a 6-game winning run in the Premier League. Their next game is against Liverpool at home. And look, if they beat Liverpool, you are talking about Nottingham Forest in the title race, which is incredible for them. But it does come with a little asterisk, which not many people are talking about. Nottingham Forest, 2 seasons in a row, have been hit with points deductions because they've been breaching the financial fair play rules. They haven't been relegated because those point deductions haven't been enough to stop them from staying up. Now, they've got the squad that they wanted by breaking the rules, and now they're in a Champions League place. So what sort of message does that send to, say, an Ipswich or a Leicester or a Wolves or an Everton that have money available to them, and maybe they should also just break the financial fair play rules, take a 5-6 point deduction, but then get the players in that's going to give them the ability not only to overhaul that 6-point deduction, but then actually move them up the table in a few years' time. Just something to bear in mind. I don't want to take anything away from Nottingham Forest because the football they've played, the achievements under Nuno this season have been fantastic. But just bear in mind that that squad was built quite literally off the back of breaking the rules. In 2nd place, we have Arsenal, which is exactly where I put them to finish. I did say on multiple occasions I could see Arsenal finishing outside the top 4 this season, but I just looked at the teams around them and I just thought, unfortunately, that Arsenal squad is too good not to finish in the top 4. I still don't think they're playing particularly great. I think the loss of Bukayo Saka could have a serious effect on them over the course of the next couple of months. Will they start dropping down the table? I'm not convinced. I still think they're too good to not finish in the top 4, which is a shame because I'd love to see Arsenal crumble, but it's not going to happen in my opinion. I'm not convinced they might finish 2nd. I know they're 2nd at the moment, but I think that place is under threat. Do I think they're going to stop Liverpool winning the league? Obviously, I hope they do as a Manchester United fan, but right now, I don't think they will. Which, of course, leaves top of the table, which is Liverpool. I predicted them to finish 3rd because I just assumed Manchester City would win the league, and I still thought Arsenal had a better squad than Liverpool. And it was wrong to just sort of go, okay, Arne Slot's going to come in, it's just going to work. I couldn't sit here and say that was something that could happen. It clearly is something that has happened. How much of that is down to him? How much of that is down to Klopp's team? I guess we'll find out over the course of the next few weeks, because let's be honest, the last few weeks Liverpool haven't been amazing. The draw with Newcastle, obviously the draw with Manchester United, they've had a couple of wobbles, but they've got Nottingham Forest next, and we already know they've lost to Nottingham Forest this season at Anfield. So, are they secure at the top of the table? As I've already said, they've only dropped 11 points so far this season. They would have to drop 15, and City would have to win every single game for Manchester City to catch them. But obviously the gap to Forest and the gap to Arsenal is only 6 points, albeit with a game in hand. They are obviously the title favourites. If you gave me this Premier League table and said who is going to win the league from here, I would predict Liverpool to win the league from here. But firstly, I really don't want that to happen, because I don't want them going level with Manchester United on league titles. But secondly, I still think there is a definite possibility that this side could crumble. And I think one big injury to one of Salah or Van Dijk could completely derail their season. But we'll see. They are fully deserving of the top of the table right now, as much as that hurts me to say. Arne Slot has done a fantastic job so far in charge of Liverpool, and we'll see what they do come the end of the season. Do I think they need to make signings in January? I think if they want to secure the Premier League title for this season, absolutely, because the sides below them are going to do business. I would expect the likes of Chelsea, maybe Newcastle, certainly Manchester City to do business. Not sure Forest and Arsenal will, but again, I'm not sure Forest and Arsenal will catch them anyway. But we'll see. Liverpool top the table for now. So all that is left to do is add up all of the points that we have accumulated over the course of this video to find out how we are getting on with our season predictions compared to the previous years. It was 70 points the first time around. It was 85 points 2 seasons ago. 46 last time out. And I can reveal to you now that as things stand at the halfway mark of the Premier League season, I am on 70 points once again, which actually isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I knew the likes of Manchester United, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest were going to be costing me. And to be honest, I can bring it up to you now, sort of show you the table as a breakdown of how I've been doing in terms of what's gone well, what's not gone well. Obviously, the green ones are the ones that I've got spot on. Yellow is between 1 and 3 points. Orange is 4 to 7. And then red is the 9 and 10 point ones. So there's actually not many teams that are letting me down. Obviously, I want Manchester United to move themselves up the table. For the sake of this video, I'd love Forest and Bournemouth to start dropping back down the table. But overall, I don't think I can be too disappointed with what I've got there. But that's just how I'm getting on. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who will be the Premier League champions at the end of the season? Who's going to get those top 4 places? And who is going down? Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you very soon.